Hi everyone, it's Natalie and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about some of the novellas that I've read recently. Now that's actually a lie. I have not read these novellas recently. I read these as far as October. Like, it's basically my novella reads for October, November, and December. But we're going to call it recent reads anyway. It took me forever to get around to this, but it's because when I want to talk about novellas, I usually want to talk about 5 or 6 because I don't go so into them because they're just novellas. It's not like there's a lot to say. So let me stop rambling and just get started. The first novella I'm going to be talking about is Mating the Huntress by Talia Hibbert. This is a werewolf romance. The guy is a werewolf. The human is a werewolf hunter. Beautiful, amazing, incredible. What else do you need to know? Absolutely nothing, except that this is basically chaotic as hell, funny as hell, and I loved it. Talia Hibbert is an icon. I gave this 4 stars because it was exactly what I needed it to be. I needed a trashy romance that fed into the tropes that I love, and this did that. I was not expecting any less from Talia Hibbert. I was like, I know this is going to be chaotic and I know I'm going to have a good time, and I did. I 100% did. This was such a good time. It was such a good time. Again, the only reason I gave it 4 stars instead of 5 is because Talia Hibbert's novellas obviously do not compare to her full-length novels. So there's always something missing in them, but it's fine because I'm not looking for perfection. I'm looking for a good time. The next novella I'm going to be talking about is Superior by Jessica Lack. This is basically the romance between the sidekick of a superhero and the evil minion of a villain, and it is really fucking cute. It is actually more serious than I expected it to be. For such a short read, it does pack a bit of a punch, like not too much of a punch, but a little bit. Again, more than I was anticipating. But I rated it 3 stars because of course it was cute, but it wasn't like everything I needed it to be. It was a bit too short for that, but it was still a very fun time. I thought the relationship between the main 2 characters was cute. I liked that we had a little bit of tension, and I liked that this is the kind of superhero story I like. It's silly, it doesn't take itself too seriously, and that's exactly what I want from superheroes, especially when I'm reading about them. Like in movies, I expect a bit more, but when I'm reading about it, I'm like, this is absolutely ridiculous. So like, lean into it, respect it. So this did that, so I don't have anything else to say. I would totally recommend it if you're just looking for something that's like very short and sweet and to the point. The next novella I'm going to talk about is actually not that much of a novella. I'm pretty confident it's over 200 pages long. I'm just putting it here because I read it with my Kindle Unlimited free trial, so I had to include it here. But it is Lore and Lust by Karla Nicole. This is the romance, the vampire romance I was waiting for. Y'all don't understand. Y'all don't understand that everything I want, everything I need is to read queer romances where both characters are vampires. I need that. Like, I need more of that. Where is it? Where is more of my queer POC vampire romance novels? Where are they? Because I'm desperate. I need more. It was such a good time. I don't know if I said that I rated it 4 stars, but I rated it 4 stars because it was trashy as hell. I'm not even going to deny it. It's slightly problematic. I mean, it definitely reads like a male romance written by a female author. I don't know if the author is queer, but it doesn't read like she's queer. It just reads like a cis hetero woman writing a male romance. But the author is a woman of color. Karla Nicole is a Black woman, and I was like, that compensates for the chaos, because I'm not going to lie, there were certain quotes here that I was like, you sure you want to say that? But again, Doesn't matter because I had a good time, and since the exact thing I'm looking for, there's not a lot of it, and there's especially not a lot of it by authors of color, I was like, it's fine, I'll settle for this, especially because it was very, very, very fun. I thought Haru and Nino were cute as hell. I was so into their romance. It was definitely more of a slow burn. It wasn't the slowest of burns, but it was slow enough. It was slow enough that it was satisfying once they got together. And if anything, I felt like the ending was a bit rushed, which I wasn't a huge fan of, but it was still cute. It still had tension. It still had this beautiful romance of like Haru being very repressed in his emotions because he's basically like the hottest piece of ass anywhere, and so he has lived many, many years trying to make himself smaller so he doesn't get as much attention, and so he meets Nino and starts opening up, and it's just beautiful, incredible. I love it. And let's talk about this cover. Let's talk about this cover. It's gorgeous. I've talked about it before on this channel, but I need to say it again. This cover is so beautiful. My man Haru is in it. He's looking incredible. He's looking iconic. There is also art of Nino, which I will probably put here because it's also gorgeous. I'm secretly hoping the sequel will have Nino on the cover because I'm having this visual in my head of the first book and the second book on my shelves, and it's just the two of them looking beautiful. Anyway, I think that's everything I need to say about this book before I just ramble on and on and on. I almost forgot to mention that I also picked up this basically bonus chapter that Carla Nicole has in this world, which is A Date in Milan, which is just basically a scene that didn't make it into the final cut of the book. So it's just like a cute and steamy scene of Haru and Nino like that. That's essentially it. So I don't have a lot to say. Obviously, I loved it. It was a good time. Pretty confident. I also gave it 4 stars because why the hell not? So yeah. The next novella I'm going to be talking about is American Squire by Sierra Simone. This is like a novella in one of her book series. I don't remember the name of the book series. I know that it kind of has to do with like Merlin and what's her name? The woman. I actually like her. I like her character. I watched the Merlin series and I actually like her character, but her name escapes me right now, so I'll just put it up above her name. I'm pretty sure the original series this novella is a part of is about them, but this follows basically a side character from that series, and it's about how another character recently, I think he was murdered, and so this guy is distraught because he was essentially in love with him. They weren't in a relationship, but he still was in love with him and his wife, I think. The details escape me because this is a short novella in a world I'm not familiar with. So that tells you a lot about what I was kind of in the mood for when I picked this up. I just wanted something short, steamy, and Sierra Simone is very good at steamy scenes, and actually this novella made me realize that this is the perfect length of Sierra Simone for me. Like maybe a little bit more, It could have been a slightly longer, it would have been perfect, because I have this thing where I enjoy Sierra Simone, but her books tend to be too long for me. They run a bit long. So reading a novella was a good time because I could have the steamy scenes, I could have the tension without having to trudge through a bunch of nothing. So I rated this 3 stars, mostly because even though it was a great length to build tension, the steamy scenes weren't my favorite, which was a disappointment because I know Sierra Simone can fucking kill it at that. So I'm kind of like, what were you doing in here? Like, why did you play us like that? But yeah, I don't think I have that much else to say about this. I wish it had been longer. Unfortunately, it wasn't, but it was still a good time, so I don't regret picking it up. I think I should also mention that there are some mild BDSM vibes in American Squire. Like, it's not super mega intense, but if you've read Sierra Simone, you already know to expect like at least the dom sub vibes. Like, that's kind of her vibe. So that was in there. I just felt like it was necessary to mention just in case. The next novella I'm going to talk about is not so much a novella, but I'm still going to include it here, and that is Merry Inkmas by Talia Hibbert. Yes, 2 Talia Hibberts in one video, because I told y'all, Talia Hibbert is bae. She is an icon. I love her. She is fantastic. I will continue to read her books until I completely read her backlist and then am just crying on the floor because I don't have more books of hers to read. So anyway, Merry Inkmas is basically kind of like a coffee shop and tattoo parlor AU. Like, it's not an AU, it's not a fake. It's not a fake of any of her worlds. It's her actual characters. But it's kind of that because it's about this woman who works at a coffee shop, and there's this guy that always comes into her shop and he's like, surprise me with a drink, and so she does. And one day she loses her job at the coffee shop because she stands up for this homeless man that she lets into the coffee shop so that he can warm up a little bit during the winter. And so the guy who always comes to see her is basically like, why don't you start working at my tattoo parlor as kind of like my secretary, like the greeting person, keeping tabs of shit, whatever. So it's the romance that develops between the 2 of them, obviously. And I gave it 4 stars because I really, really loved it. I read this, of course, between Christmas Eve and Christmas because I was feeling self-indulgent and I knew that Talia Hibbert would not let me down, and she did not. I always say this when talking about Talia Hibbert, or almost always. I didn't talk about it when I talk about Mating the Huntress, but that's because that one is more fun than serious. But one of the things I love about Talia Hibbert is that her characters are always unique. They always have their own challenges. So for example, in this one, we have Cash, who is the love interest. Yes, his name is Cash. He, I guess, trigger warnings for domestic abuse and child abuse. So he grew up in a household where his father abused his mother physically, emotionally, and this is kind of a spoiler, but he almost gets killed by his father. And so that led to a lot of trauma for him. He's very scared that if he falls deeply in love with a woman, he is going to turn violent and he's going to hurt her. He has never done it before, but because he's so scared of that, he doesn't commit to relationships. And the female main character basically has mommy issues because her mother was always chasing after a man when she was growing up and kind of chasing this dream, this fairy tale romance. And so she doesn't believe in fairy tale romances. Like, she thinks they're cute, but she's like, I don't trust any man to actually love me fully and deeply and sincerely be committed to me. So she's not interested in being in a serious relationship. But of course, this is a romance, so it's basically about them overcoming their trauma and learning to trust each other and commit to each other. Which, again, I rated this 4 stars because that element wasn't as thoroughly explored as I would have liked. I think we understood and it was settled well why they were so opposed to these relationships, but you didn't get to fully savor them overcoming that. It was a little bit rushed, so that's why it ended up being a 4-star for me. And then again, something that happened with another of her novellas that I'll be talking about in a future video. The ending was a bit too cheesy for me. I'm finding that Talia Hibbert, especially in her novellas, tends to put like the traditional happily ever after, like getting married, having kids, and that's not really my vibe. I mean, I think it's great, but I don't need the romance to end there. I'm okay with the romance just ending with them getting together and being cute. I don't need you to give me an epilogue where they're married and there's children running around the house. Either fully invest and just give that to me, continue the book so that I get there and enjoy the whole thing, or just don't give it to me at all. So that was another thing that happened in this one that I was kind of like, I didn't need that. But overall, of course, I love this. I will obviously keep reading Talia Hibbert because she's my queen, so don't regret picking this up at all. The last novel I'm going to be talking about is Mangoes and Mistletoe by Adriana Herrera. This is another Christmas novella that I picked up, I think, a few days after Christmas because On Puerto Rican, Christmas extends till the very least Reyes, like Three Kings Day. At the very least, it extends to then. So anyway, this novela is about this baking competition in which these two Dominican women are put in this group to work together and compete against other pairs of bakers. And it's basically about the romance that develops between the two of them, even though one of them is a little bit more hot and cold than the other one. So I rated this 4 stars. Overall, I really enjoyed it. I thought the main characters were interesting. I like the dynamic of one of the characters being a little bit more bubbly but also not afraid to stand up for herself, and the other one being more like the serious type, kind of like pushing away the other character because she's trying to be like very focused on the competition and whatnot. I like dynamics like that, so I really enjoyed that. And as someone who enjoys watching baking competitions, this was a really fun novella to pick up. I actually wished we had had more page time in the actual contest because I could feel the energy of the competition, but I felt a little bit robbed because we didn't get as much time in those scenes. And I'm like, but I'm here for both. I'm here for the romance and I'm here for the baking competition. Give me both. Don't hold back. Like, you don't have to. You don't have to hold back. Accept that we are here and you called this a foodie romance, so you understand that we can respect both. We can appreciate both. So that was kind of the only thing that I was kind of like, I wish there had been a little bit more of that. So yeah, I don't have much else to say about this novella. I just know that I would recommend it. I thought it was cute. I thought it was steamy. It was a good time. I'm glad I picked it up. So yeah, that's it for today's video. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. If you would like to follow me on any of my social media, I will have the links to that down below in the description. But for now, see you next time.